Hello everyone, I look like shit, but I read a book. Hooray! In all honesty, it's been a crazy while here. I've had a lot to do, and I released a book. But no time to talk about that. I read a book, and it's a good book. It's called The Grand. It's by Evelyn Chartres, and here's my breakdown of it. Okay, so plot. It takes place in the 20s, 30s, 40s, a little bit in the 1910s, which is kind of neat. That's very briefly, though. It mostly takes place in the 20s, and with brief interludes into the 40s when you're following, I think he's a barrister? Yeah, I think that's what he was. Who goes to this town, goes to the Grand, and, starts looking things up and whatnot. And he finds these stories that go along with their Grand's history. Then they're fairly gruesome stories, and it's a lot of dead bodies. It's a lot of judges and legal people who were obviously paid off to not bring any sort of justice to the people of the Grand, because it's a place where the supernatural goes. Stuff like vampires, werewolves, elder gods. I think there were gargoyles there. It fits all into Evelyn's overarching world that she's building. Like it definitely directly goes into the Van Helsing paradox, considering there is the chapter where you get basically the last fight with Clara Gray and the vampire, which honestly was kind of neat to see, not gonna lie. For the most part, the book is set up like a series of short stories that go into the history of the Grand and everything that pertains to this hotel. And honestly, that's kind of neat to see. I kind of liked reading that. And in that sort of style, there's a lot of jumping back and forth, but it's done in a way that you know where you are in the timeline. It's got these handy little, date tags, which really helps. Not that I really read them overly, or not really paid much attention to it, because, well, you read it and then you get into the actual story. And all the while, this guy John is trying to figure out what is going on, why things are happening, and he's slowly piecing things together. I mean, we as the reader, we know what's going on, because it's being shown to us through the flashbacks. John does not know. John is trying to figure things out. And honestly, it's kind of a really cool way to see things being done. Because a lot of the time, especially with this style of genre, you get that slow burn, you get that slow, gradual understanding of to what's going on, where in this one, it's more of a there are other secrets that you're not getting, and instead we're being given other stories. We're learning the history of the Grand, and that really actually helps with the building of this world. So all in all, I'm gonna give plot a 4-star. It does lose out a little bit just on the sake that it is a bit of a flashback back and forth. It's kind of a personal hatred of mine, but like I said, it does kind of work. I'm definitely more of one who likes the more linear style of storytelling. But at the same time, it does still work. Also, a lot of the characters tend to be very, very short, and it's just not... It's done very well, but it's done with something that I don't particularly care for. So, while I liked it, I still gonna take away one of the stars, so... Plot's still 4 stars. It's still pretty damn good. Characters. There are a lot of characters in this book. So many characters in this book. And the majority of them are not around for very long. So it can get a little difficult to remember who exactly is who. And that alone kind of really drags things down a little bit. It's not much of a complaint, but more of a, who is this again? Oh yeah, that's who that was. Okay. The characters, when they're on the page, are very dynamic and very, very well written. But they're not around very much. But the ones who are, are exceptionally well written. They are so interesting. Like, there was no point, because the characters that tend to stick around more often are like Louis, Max, John, Evelyn. Those are the four characters that really stand out, mostly because they stick around throughout the entirety of the book. And Max is super interesting. I was really interested in following him, and was kind of really confused at first as to why he wasn't around in a lot of the chapters. I thought he was more the main character. Turns out there really isn't much of a main character. John, watching him unravel this mystery is super interesting to watch. Evelyn, trying to figure out her mystery, is super interesting. Louis, even as kind of more of a background character of these main four, is honestly kind of a cool character to watch. So, all in all, I'm going to give character a 4 out of 5. All the characters are very, very well written, but the majority of them aren't around long enough to really get a grasp of them and to really care what goes on to them, or what happens to them. I mean, granted, the vast majority of the characters tend to meet some very not so nice ends, and I don't really count that much as a spoiler because it becomes fairly apparent very, very early on in the book. But yeah, a lot of the characters really don't meet some nice ends. So, yeah, characters is a 4 to 5. Imagination and research. I don't know how else to put this, but you really have to read this book to grasp the level of imagination and research that went into this. It's phenomenal, and if I wasn't convinced with the Van Helsing paradox, I am convinced with this one. I have to read everything that this woman puts out because it is just fantastic. The level of research, especially in 20s culture, is probably the best I've ever seen. And if I ever do a book in that era, I will be asking her so many questions. Because she knows what she's talking about. She knows what she's doing. And it'll be on top of my own research. So, imagination research, straight up 5 out of 5. Without a doubt. Writing. The writing is damn good. She's a damn good writer. Some of the time it got a little difficult to know where exactly I was supposed to be in terms of the book and what exactly I was looking at. Because, things are definitely well described. Sometimes it gets a little fast, or sometimes it goes a little too slow. And I lost interest a couple of times. It's not really a bad thing, but it's definitely something that drug the book down just that little bit. So, writing is a 4-star. It's 4 to 5. It's still very, very well written. Just a couple of places that I can't even really pinpoint where I just found myself either getting a little bored or going, okay, what the hell happened? And having to go back. So, yeah, 4 to 5. Still pretty damn good. Ending. Wow. I did not think she would end it the way that she did. I'm really happy that she ended it the way that she did. Evelyn Chartres, between these two books, I have found she is just amazing at endings. One of the hardest things for a writer, and she is phenomenal at it. I'm going to be doing a bit of a spoilery ending here like I normally do. There's a timestamp for where I will be ending this, and you can pick it up from there. Everyone gone? Okay. So, there's these ghoul hunters. They're TV, online ghost hunters, essentially, trying to find proof of the paranormal, and they go to the Grand, and they get their proof. And it's not in a very nice way. And you get the sense that the Grand and everything within the Grand is still alive and thriving, despite the hotel itself kind of going into serious disarray. You know that it is still thriving because these characters all die, and there's this whole thing where they uploaded it to this website, and the people of the Grand, well, it's not directly stated that these people straight up just went in and made these claims false and made these claims incredibly falsified. it's definitely alluded to, and you definitely get the sense that that is what they did. So these people are still controlling things. These people are still capable of doing what they were doing in the 20s in the modern era. And it's such a neat ending. It's such an awesome ending to what we saw. These characters continued the trend of meeting very gruesome and grisly ends, but they were the closest to ever really showing that the paranormal actually exists. And in fact, they probably could have got away with it. It probably could have been considered actual proof, but the vampires and the supernatural got a hold of everything and just made it out to be falsified. They made it out to be not real. And yeah, I don't think I could have thought of a better ending to it. I just thought it would be just sort of a sudden end. It said, yeah, well, this is kind of the history of what it was, and well, everything's moved on since. It's, blah, 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 blah. Instead, she actually gave it a really good ending and a very open ending to the possibility of showing the supernatural in the modern era within her books. And I look forward to the possibility of that, even if it doesn't actually come. Even if she tends to stick more to the 30s, 40s, 50s era, even in the 20s era. Even if she chooses to stick to that era, I'm fine with it. She's such an incredible writer. She does such an amazing job. So, yeah, straight up, a 5 out of 5 for this. So, for all of you who just got back, yeah, it's a straight up 5 out of 5 for ending. You either gotta read it or see what I said. Sorry, it's the best I can do, because otherwise, if I even try to get into it, I'm going to spoil it. So yeah, The Grand is an incredible book. It is one that people should be reading. It is one that people need to be reading more. She is an author that people need to be reading more. Like, 2 books are incredible. This book is a straight up 8.5 out of 10. Van Helsing Paradox was a 9 out of 10. I am thoroughly convinced that I need to read everything that this woman writes. And I look forward to reading The Portrait. I look forward to reading her next book and see where it goes, because I'm impressed and I will continue to read this. I seriously cannot wait to see where this world goes.